Ever feel like someone somewhere needs to hit the reset button on, well, everything?
Like a planetary do-over.
Exactly. And that's kind of what we're diving into today, this whole Earth 2.0 idea.
Not just an idea, though. From what I see, we've got these documents, Earth 2.0, A Better Way, and hold on, another one, Earth 2.0, The Future We Deserve. Plus, get this, an FAQ answered section. Someone's thought this through.
Sounds like they knew this Earth 2.0 thing was going to ruffle some feathers.
Right, it's ambitious, to say the least. But what gets me is how detailed it is. We're not talking about some pie-in-the-sky utopia. This plan lays out specifics.
Yeah, forget flying cars. This is more like rewiring the whole system.
Exactly. And it all starts with their core principles, right? Sustainability, equity, protecting biodiversity, innovation, and then decentralization.
It's like they took all the buzzwords, but then actually tried to weave them into, I don't know, a functioning society.
It's fascinating how they link them all. Take sustainability. It's not just go green, it's a whole circular economy.
Yeah.
Waste minimized, resources used right.
And then there's equity. Not just equal rights, but equal access to opportunity, resources, the whole 9 yards.
And it's not even just listing these things separately, it's how they overlap. Like they've got this idea of AI guardianship, AI to actually manage the environment.
Okay, hold up. AI in charge. That sounds like a sci-fi movie waiting to go wrong.
Right, but think about it. This ties into their sustainability principle, keeping resources in check. But it's also about innovation, right? Leveraging tech.
Okay, I see where you're going, but who controls the AI?
That's where the decentralized governance comes in. Communities get more control, tying it back to equity.
It's a lot to wrap your head around, but you can see the thought process. Like they're trying to build a system where all these pieces actually work together, not against each other.
Absolutely. It's a holistic approach. They're not just putting band-aids on problems, and nowhere is that clearer than in their land use ideas.
Oh yeah, this is a big one. They propose a pretty radical split. 70% untouched wilderness.
10% managed reserves, and then only 20% for us. Human zones.
Makes you realize how much we gobble up, right? It's a pretty stark contrast to how we do things now.
It's a huge shift in thinking, putting nature first. And it's not just about drawing lines on a map. They've got these biodiversity corridors.
So like wildlife highways, so animals can actually migrate even with human development around.
Precisely. It's about ensuring that biodiversity isn't just this afterthought. It's built into the plan.
It's ambitious,
Yeah.
to say the least. But honestly, with the way we treat the planet now, it's almost like we're in competition with nature, not coexisting.
It would require a huge change in our mindset, our priorities. That's the thing about this Earth 2.0. It really makes you confront these uncomfortable truths about our relationship with the planet.
And not just with the planet, but with each other. Because then they get into these arcology-based cities, and it's like, whoa, are we in a sci-fi movie now?
Vertical cities, all green buildings, each block designed to be almost like self-sufficient. It's wild.
Talk about efficient use of space. But what about community? It sounds kind of isolating.
That's the thing. They've designed it to actually foster community despite being so compact. And then it gets even more interesting with their circular city layout.
Okay, I love a good visual, so paint me a picture here. What's a circular city look like?
Imagine this. You've got your central hub in the middle, then an inner circle, residential, a second circle for industry and commerce, and get this, an outer circle dedicated to farmland and greenhouses.
Wait, so food's grown right there in the city.
Exactly. Local, sustainable food production built right into the design. It's radically different from how we plan cities now.
It almost sounds too good to be true. Like, is this really possible, or are we just in fantasy land now?
That's the thing about this whole Earth 2.0 idea. It pushes the boundaries of what we think is possible. It forces us to ask, what if?
And they don't stop at the physical layout. They've incorporated all sorts of smart technology, AI, and automation everywhere.
Right, but they are very clear about it being for optimization, not some AI takeover, but making things run more smoothly.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Think traffic flow managed by algorithms, energy consumption constantly being optimized, things like that.
Okay, so this is where my inner tech nerd gets a little excited.
Right.
Imagine a world where robots are doing all the boring stuff and humans are free to, actually live.
That's the idea, freeing up human potential. But they also emphasize the ethical side of it, human control, making sure technology serves us, not the other way around.
Okay, good, because the thought of robots taking over is not exactly my idea of a good time.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of tech, but also eco-friendly transportation, right? I bet they've got plans for that too.
Oh, absolutely. Autonomous electric vehicles, high-speed rail, even magnetic levitation trains.
Okay, now they're just showing off.
Hey, gotta aim high, right.
Eh,
Plus, it all runs on 100% renewable energy, of course.
naturally. But hold on. With all this tech, all these interconnected systems, how do they propose managing it all, especially on a global scale?
Well, they've got something called a quantum internet. It basically instant, secure communication anywhere on the planet.
A quantum internet, now that's just showing off. But honestly, it makes sense. If you're going to coordinate something this complex, you need a communication system that's, well, light years ahead of what we have now.
Right. Especially with their emphasis on decentralized governance. They're talking local councils making decisions, but also a global council for the big picture stuff.
See, that's what I always wonder about. How do you balance local control with global cooperation, especially on something as big as, say, climate change?
It's a tough one. That's actually something their FAQ tries to address. Their argument is that, well, it might seem chaotic, but this decentralized approach is ultimately more responsive, more equitable.
So, more power to the people, basically.
Yeah, local councils handle local issues, global
Oh,
council for the big stuff. Makes sense in theory, but in practice.
yeah, that's the million-dollar question. And what about resources? If everyone gets a say, how do you decide who gets what?
Well, they've got a pretty radical solution for that. Basic needs for all. Everyone. Guaranteed access to the essentials. Food, shelter, water, healthcare, education.
Hold on, are we talking about, like, a world without poverty, where everyone's taken care of?
That's the goal. They call it a post-scarcity economy. The idea is that with a universal basic income, people aren't working just to survive. They're free to pursue passions, contribute to their community, whatever.
Okay, now that's a future I can get behind. But, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, if no one has to work, how do things get done?
That's where their concept of time banking comes in. It's like instead of money, you earn credits by contributing your time and skills.
So you could, what, volunteer at a community garden and then use those credits to, I don't know, get a massage?
Exactly. It's about valuing all types of contributions, not just those with a traditional paycheck.
Huh, that's a really interesting concept. It makes you think of the value of work in a whole new way.
And this whole idea of community and sustainability, it's at the heart of their economic model, too.
Right. They're all about local resources, minimizing waste, creating these closed-loop systems where everything gets reused or recycled. It's like they took the phrase, one man's trash is another man's treasure, and built a whole economy around it.
Yeah, it's like taking that idea to a whole new level. It's funny, when you think about nature, nothing really goes to waste, does it? Everything gets recycled, repurposed. They're trying to mimic that, but with our economy.
It's a cool concept, but is it really doable on a global scale? I mean, it's one thing to talk about it, but to actually retool an entire economy, that's a massive undertaking.
They address that. It wouldn't be an overnight thing, more like phasing things out gradually, replacing the old take, make, waste with these circular systems. It's a process.
A process that would probably take, what, decades?
Mhm.
Generations even.
Probably. But the point is, they're thinking long term. And look, they acknowledge the challenges, but they also point out how much we stand to gain. A healthier planet, for starters.
Okay, that's a good point. And speaking of healthier, let's talk about their approach to healthcare. It's pretty different from what we're used to.
Yeah, it's all about prevention and this holistic idea, treating the whole person, not just symptoms.
So less about hospitals, more about actually staying healthy in the first place.
Exactly. They talk about integrating mindfulness into everyday life, making mental health support easy to access, and building communities that just, well, support each other.
Makes sense. If you're not constantly stressed or isolated, you're probably going to be healthier overall.
Right. And they even argue that healthcare should be a right, not a privilege, accessible to everyone.
Okay, now that's a concept I can get behind. It's amazing how this healthcare stuff ties back into their whole equity philosophy.
It's all connected, right? Every aspect seems to feed back into their core principles.
Like their environmental plans.
Yeah.
We talked about the land allocation, but they also go big on reforestation and protecting the oceans.
Huge. It's not just about preserving what we have left. It's about restoring what's been damaged. Planting trees on a massive scale, cleaning up the oceans.
Where they talk about those giant machines that suck carbon out of the air, that whole carbon sequestration thing.
They mention it. But it's not just about tech. They also emphasize natural solutions like reforestation and changing how we farm.
It's definitely a more optimistic take than we usually hear. Like, instead of focusing on how bad things are, they're saying, hey, we can fix this.
Right. It's a message of hope. And not just for the environment, but for global peace, too. Remember those mediation councils?
Yeah, instead of armies, they've got mediators.
Yeah.
Sounds lovely, but kind of naive, no? I mean, the world's a messy place.
They acknowledge that. But they argue that a lot of conflict stems from the same root, causes inequality, competition for resources, lack of understanding.
So their thinking is, fix those problems and you reduce the likelihood of war in the first place.
Exactly. And get this, they even propose getting rid of standing armies altogether.
Whoa, that's a bold move. But I mean, who needs an army if everyone's needs are met, right?
That's their logic. And
Right.
it's not just Earth they're focused on. They have plans for space exploration, too.
Oh yeah, what's their take on space? We're talking about colonizing Mars or something?
Yeah. Actually, no. They're not about the whole colonization thing. They see space exploration as an opportunity for scientific discovery, learning about the universe, not conquering it.
Huh. That's actually really refreshing. It's more about expanding our knowledge, not our territory.
It's a very different perspective, right?
Hmm.
And it highlights something important about this whole Earth 2.0 vision. It's not meant to be static.
What do you mean?
It's not like they're handing us a finished utopia and saying, here you go. They know the future is uncertain, things change. So they built in this idea of adaptability.
So it's more like guidelines, not hard and fast rules.
Exactly. It's about embracing the principles, not clinging to a rigid plan.
Makes sense. After all, who knows what challenges future generations will face?
Right. And they even encourage future generations to adapt the plan, make it their own.
It's a pretty empowering message. Like, we've given you the tools, now go build something amazing.
And that's really what makes this whole thing so compelling, isn't it? It's not just about a different world, it's an invitation to help create it.
It's like they're saying, don't just stand there, grab a shovel. But, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah, it's about taking action and not waiting for some perfect moment or some grand plan. They're saying we can start implementing parts of this Earth 2.0 like right now in our own lives.
So it's about taking those big ideas, those principles, and figuring out how they translate to our everyday choices.
Exactly. Supporting sustainable businesses, pushing for renewable energy, embracing those circular economy models we talked about.
And prioritizing things like mental health, community well-being.
All of it.
Yeah.
Because even small changes multiplied across millions of people, it adds up.
It's about shifting our mindset, right? Moving away from that scarcity mentality, that feeling of, like, there's not enough to go around.
And embracing abundance, collaboration, believing that a better future is actually possible.
Because it is, right? I mean, we have the knowledge, the technology, the resources.
We just need the will, the collective will to make it happen. This Earth 2.0, it's not some fairy tale. It's a call to action.
It's a challenge to think differently, to step outside our comfort zones, to question the way things are, and actually try to build something better.
Reimagine, rebuild, renew. It's not just a catchy slogan, it's a roadmap.
It's a vision, one that's definitely sparked a lot of thoughts for me, and probably some healthy skepticism along the way.
As it should. It's a lot to process. But that's what we're here for, right? To dive into these big ideas, explore the possibilities, even if some of them sound a little out there.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to hear from you. What parts of this Earth 2.0 vision resonated with you? What parts left you scratching your head?
And most importantly, what kind of world do you want to create? Because the future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we build together.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the future. We'll see you next time, ready to dive into another fascinating topic.